Hey everybody, it's V. How you doing tonight? And I thought we would do a little bit of prospector mining. With Wave 2 coming out here in the PTU, I really feel like we're getting into a really good place. And I felt like it was a good time to walk you through some of the Prospector 101, some of the basics of Quantanium mining. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now, I am using, of course, the Prospector, and it is going to be a fairly basic loadout for Quantanium mining. As a matter of fact, I don't have any special extra drives at all. No paint jobs, no difference in vehicle weapons. Those are all stock. However, I am going to change to the Lancet MH1, and I'm going to also use the Brants in slot 1 and 2, and an FLTR XL in slot 3. Those are all available here on ARC L1, where I'm currently located. This is going to be the refinery that I take off from and return to. So now that I've loaded the new mining laser head that's more adjusted for Quantanium mining, and put on a couple of extra mining modules, I'm going to go ahead and pull the Prospector. It's going to be coming out here at Hangar 1, and we are going to be heading up and heading out. So we're going to be going to the Aaron Halo, and one of the reasons why we're going to focus on going to the Aaron Halo is because I feel pretty early in 3.18, the first couple of weeks, it's going to be very dangerous, more dangerous than it currently is. I think that there's going to be a little more piracy, especially with the way that the cargo refactor works with soft death. I do think it's going to be in our best interest as industrial players. I like to joke that we are sheep among wolves, to not be easy targets and work our way out to, say, the Aaron Halo and do some of our mining out that way. So how do we get there? First off, we're going to go ahead and fire up our engines. We're going to fire up the power. I'm going to set Crusader as my route from ARC L1. That's where I'm leaving. I'm going to go ahead and ask for them to open the hangar bay doors, adjust or trim my velocity, and get ready to leave the hangar. So we are actually going to spool our quantum drive and head towards Crusader, and we're going to drop out of quantum at 33,600,000. That's going to drop us out into the Aaron Halo. And the Aaron Halo is kind of just zero space, deep space. It's very unlikely that people are going to be able to find you in the Aaron Halo. So once again, we're orientating our Prospector towards Crusader. We're spooling our quantum drive. Notice we're 39,653,000 away. We're going to want to drop out of quantum at 33,600,000. Sorry about that. So off we go. So some of the scanning mechanics have changed just a touch when it comes to mining. In 3.17, all of the patches, 3.17, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, in order to get the scan results in the Aaron Halo, you used to have the mining laser out. That's not the way it is anymore. Everything is kind of self-contained as far as locating Quantanium. In scan mode, you're going to be able to get your RS signature values, and you're going to be able to also get your scan results. Both of those are going to be in scan mode. So, we'll go through the scanning mechanics here in just a bit. So anyways, yeah, I'm really getting excited. I do think Quantanium mining's not in a bad place right now. I feel pretty comfortable with where things are at for Lyria, which is a very common place to Quantanium mine. I'm feeling very comfortable with where things are at in the Aaron Halo. I do think that you're going to be able to be a little more steady or more consistent if you do salvage out of the gate. But Quantanium, if you happen to have a Prospector and you're an old miner like me, you definitely an old miner. You definitely can, for the most part, once you have enough for the Lancet and some Brants, go get right out there and get after the Quantanium. And so You know, I make, you know, TLDR, 230,000 in about a half-hour trip. So that's a big amount of money in a short period of time. So here we are. You can see we're 33, 33.7, 33.6, and we dropped out. And you can see we dropped out right at the Aaron Halo. Now, the first thing I like to do when I come out of the Aaron Halo in this position is put the sun at my 12 o'clock. So I actually go ahead and set my quantum to ARC L1 wide forest station, and I use that quantum beacon as for a couple of things. Number one, if I look behind me, that's where the sun is, right? That's why I want to keep the sun in my back. It's gonna be a little helpful. Here I'm gonna go into V scan. I just hit V. I rolled forward to a 180 scan, and then if you look at the RS signature value, rocks are in quantity. You know, they're 1,700 per unit, so 3,400 is actually 2 rocks. I then pinged again after collapsing the scan angle, and you can see right off the bat, I found some Q types. So I came out of the Aaron Halo. You know, I rolled over, I did a 180 scan. I've got an opportunity marker. You know, I closed my scan angle down on the opportunity marker. I pinged again. It gave me the diamond icons. I pushed and held and did a long scan, you know, over top of the diamond icons, and they were actually, it showed me they were Q types, which is about as quick as you're going to find Quantanium here in the Aaron Halo. Now, as I approached these rocks, I did set the scan angle to 90 or so to keep them out in front of me, and then eventually, as you approach them, it is helpful if you get your mining laser out. And you want to get within about 150 meters of these guys, you know, 175 in. And you'll want to scooch in, you'll start getting your scan results, and you can see right off the bat, I know that that's not going to be a great rock. That's going to be a 2%er. We're not going to want to mine that guy. And then we're also going to take a look at the second opportunity. Remember, it was a 3,400 RS signature value, so 1,700 times 2. This rock ended up being a 12%er, and also not a great rock for us to mine. So we're going to move on. Notice I kind of rinse and repeat. We focus back on the quantum marker. I go ahead and send out a 180 ping. Then I collapse my signature. I then ping on the diamond icons, and you can see this was an E-type, so I'm not going to approach it. Once again, with a collapse scan angle, I'm looking at RS signature values. There's 5,100. That's going to be 3 rocks, right? 17, 17, 17. And so 3 rocks is never Quantanium. Also, you can notice here, like when you scan a rock and it says scanning at the top of the HUD, but it does not give you a scan result on the left-hand side of the UI, do not approach those rocks. Okay, they're unscannable unless you're gonna determine if they're Quantanium rocks, and then there is an EVA trick where you can EVA out of the ship. Sometimes unscannable Quantanium rocks, you can EVA your way out of the ship, and you can actually wait and then climb back into the ship, and it will turn unscannable rocks into scannable rocks. So here I found another 3,400. That was 2. That was actually an M-type, so not what I'm looking for. And so just kind of once again collapsing my scan angle, running my cursor over the opportunity markers. There's another 3,400. You can see the diamond icons pop. I then just move my cursor over. I do a long scan on top of them. And I'm trying to see, they're not actually giving me any scan results. And so I decided to approach them. And I was just going to kind of get a visual on them. And as I kind of approached them, and you can actually, I can see at that distance, I'm like, these are actually Quantanium rocks. And I was considering doing the EVA trick, but I thought, well, let me just pull out the mining laser for a second and see if they do scan. And I'm like, oh, they do have scan results. So, you know, they didn't give me the scan results early, but you know, this is, sometimes you have to kind of give it a little bit of time and be persistent. And here I approach these rocks and I'm taking a look at them. And of course, like I said, you want to get within 150. Notice we're not getting any scan results at all. So it's like, what is going on here? So one little tip or trick would be to turn off your mining laser, turn off scan mode, shoot the rock. I know it sounds kind of crazy. and then put yourself back in mining mode. And sure enough, if they're going to give you scan results, that's going to prime them. Now that doesn't work on unscannable rocks, but rocks that look like they're going to give you scan results, those are going to be the ones that you're going to want to do that with. So we can see here we have a nice rock. This is a 4931, and it's at almost 29%. So this is going to be, 26, 27 SCU. So notice I'm orientating myself around the other rock. What I'm trying to do is actually create some contrast on the on the right hand side of the UI. I am trying to kind of use the sun in a way where we're going to have some brightness on the left hand side of the rock, some darkness on the right hand side of the rock. We're going to create some contrast. Now, this is a 4931 mass rock. It's going to take a minute or so to get your charge level into the optimal range. And so one of the things that you can do is, get close, get, between 3 and 5 meters, and it's just going to be a little bit of a waiting game. The good news is with the Lancet MH1, there is no rock in the Iron Halo that is above a size that you can crack. So you're not going to have, there's a couple of advantages of being in the Halo. Number one, anonymity. Number two, there's going to be no rocks that you're going to run into that you can't break. For whatever reason, the largest arbitrary size is 5122. Number three is that none of the rocks, when a rock breaks apart, none of them are going to sink below the geography where you're not going to be able to get them. So the Iron Halo does have some very, very nice advantages. There are times when you could certainly locate Quantanium faster on Lyria, but there are times when the rocks are well above 5,900 mass, so you're not necessarily going to be able to break those without mining gadgets or a buddy, or something along those lines. And also there are times when you break the rock on a planet surface and pieces of it are, large pieces of not necessarily good material are on top and the good pieces are on the bottom, and sometimes they sink below the surface. So the Iron Halo, like I said, there are some real decent advantages to mining here. Now you can see it's taken definitely a little while to heat the rock up, and you can see it's kind of a volatile process. The rock's kind of getting grumpy here. I love the animations, but it is starting to get up towards the optimal, and so what we're going to want to do is once the charge level gets into the optimal, you want to hold it there, and you do that by feathering the laser intensity. And so whatever device that you have, I use mouse wheel. I'm perfectly comfortable with it. I actually fly with sticks, but then when I get into doing this mining part, I actually switch over to mouse and keyboard. And so the mouse and keyboard, there's just a little bit more. You can actually kind of refine your movements a little bit more, and I tend to find that it's just a little easier to do the mining that way. But whatever you're comfortable with is absolutely fine. So as we start to get into the green here, one of the things I have noticed is that once you're inside the green optimal window, it's taking considerably less power to hold in the optimal window. That is a very, very big difference I've noticed in mining in 3.18 versus 3.17. You can see, like, with down around 20%, I'm still holding in the green, but you'll really notice that on secondary breaks where literally 0% laser power can be putting intensity into the rocks. So now first break is done. We want to go ahead and take a look at all the rocks on second break. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and get scan results on every one of the rocks. And there was kind of a glitch there, you can see, and then there are some, from time to time. So we're going around, that's 100% are there. That's great. We're taking a look at this rock here. This is going to be nothing. It's nothing because you don't have lots of overcharged red, and you'd have a very thick green optimal window. When it's a lot of red, and a little optimal window, then you know that you're going to be onto the stuff. And here's what I mean. You can see here, it's going to be a lot of red and a little optimal window. And that's going to tell me that's 100% Quantanium. And that's actually almost 14 SCU of the good stuff, 690 mass. You know, it's basically, or 700 mass or whatever would be 14 SCU of Quantanium. So we know that that's actually a fairly reasonable amount of Quantanium, which is great. So here we go. We've now kind of identified the 3 rocks that are the secondaries that we want to break. My recommendation is always break the lowest percentages down first, in case there's any kind of despawns or problems, or as you kind of get yourself kind of acclimated to the power levels, the charge levels, and the laser intensities. You can see here, this is a very different thing, right? This it's not a huge mass rock, but it's still, a fairly good chunk. And if you notice, even at 2%, I'm holding in the green. That's a little bit of a change. This used to be a 10 to 12% you'd have to hold it at and feather it back and forth a little bit. I'm finding myself on these secondary breaks in many cases toggling between 2% to 4% and 0 in order to kind of keep it in the optimal. So there are times when I'm having to turn off the laser in order to kind of not necessarily overcharge or overcook the rock. And here's a perfect example of that. You can see I bumped it up to 6% and then I'm down. It's like, oh my goodness, look how fast it jumped up into the red. And now I'm at 0 and it's still not coming out of it. Like I'm down at 0. I literally had to turn the laser off. And here I get into a situation when it's a small mass rock, like around 300-400 mass rock, that literally what I'm doing is at 0% laser intensity, I'm actually turning the laser on, turning it off, turning the laser on, turning it off. That's at 0% because, like I said, there's a significant change. For all of you who are going to be doing your secondary breaks, don't, rush in there with a big, powerful, charge, because you'll get yourself into a jam in a hurry. It is a significant change for sure. So here again, we'll kind of look at this together. I'm not putting that much charge in there. There's 0, like I'm at a 0%, and it's holding in the green at 0%. Now it does start to fall out, so I move it to 2, and at 2%, it begins to make gains in the optimal. That's, like I said, that's a little bit different than it used to be. And that's okay. It's just recognizing that it's different, and that's why I do these videos, and that's why we're here, right? So. I'm toggling between 0%, and like turning the laser off, turning the laser on sometimes, in order to just kind of keep it in there, doing whatever we need to do in order to make a clean break. We don't want to overcook the rock at all. So now that we've broken up all the rocks, I know if this is 100%er, that every one of these is going to be 100% purples. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn on the extraction laser right away and get started. I'm going to have to be a little more discerning on the right-hand side, where there was one rock that was a 42%er. The lower rock was also a 100%er, so we're going to be able to grab that. But we're moving along just fine here. We're, I don't need to take a lot of extra time to understand the scan results for a lot of these, because quite honestly, over here, the only thing I broke was a 100%er. So all the purples are going to be 100%. And that's going to make it, a lot easier to deal with in this particular case. Same kind of gig though. You want to make sure you break down all the rock and break it down all into purples, and kind of never a bad idea, even if you went through and learned what you're going to scoop, by scanning every one of them before you start your timer. Once you begin scooping Quantanium, it doesn't matter if you scoop 1.001 of it, your timer starts. So you're going to want to definitely break down the first rock into the secondaries, break down the secondary rocks till they're all purples, and then you want to prioritize the rocks that you're going to scoop and go ahead and scoop them. Now, there's plenty of time. A lot of time people are a little concerned about the Quantanium timer, and I understand, especially if you're new. or you haven't spent a lot of time with it, it can be a little bit, scary. But there's more time than you think there, and this is coming from somebody. Probably, no exaggeration, I've probably done well over 1,000 Prospector runs in my time in Star Citizen. This is my favorite thing to do in the game by a mile, and I really, really enjoy this gameplay loop. I'm certainly looking forward to weaving in some racing and weaving in some salvaging and doing some other things as well in 3.18, but Quantanium mining's never coming off the table for me. Now, I got pretty lucky out here this time. I found Quantanium pretty quickly. You're not always going to find Quantanium quickly. Sometimes it's a little like fishing, you never know if you're going to come right out and find something or not. And like I said, as far as consistency goes, it does seem like locating scrap is a little easier right now near in Halo. That being said, unless you had a reclaimer and a heck of a heck of a team and a heck of a good run, you're not going to make 230,000 in a half hour in too many other ships. Without kind of some heavy combat, in Star Citizen. So Quantanium mining is very lucrative. In this half-hour run, now keep in mind I still have to do the cargo run, but in this half-hour video, coming out here and getting the Quantanium that we got and taking it back to the refinery, it was 232,000 is the total value of it after I did do my refining with it. So sure enough, we've scooped all the Quantanium. We're heading back to Arkel 1. And one of the things I always like to say, and I do lots of streams. I stream Quantanium mining quite a bit, and I always do joke. It's certainly not the most high octane content. But just because you've gone out to the air in Halo, located Quantanium, did a pretty good job of breaking it down and getting it into your ship, that doesn't necessarily mean that your work is done. You still have to get it safely to the refinery, before you absolutely, can at least get to a spot where, the material is being refined at the refinery, and it's out of your hands. So we're approaching Arkel 1. Some of the things that I like to think about as I'm approaching it, is a couple of little tips and tricks. When you come out of First Quantum, depending on what drive you have, you're going to have a cooldown. Now, you might not have a long cooldown. In my case, with the stock Goliath drive, I do have a long cooldown. If you're using something like a VK00, your cooldown's not going to be very long. Alice is not going to be very long. That being said, there's a little bit of a kind of a known issue. Like if you don't unspool your quantum drive and you go to the forest station on second quantum, it'll just kind of blink and you'll have to respool. So one way around that is when you come out of first quantum, and we're about to do that here. You can see we're 300,000 or so away from coming out of first quantum, and we'll just kind of ride it out here for this last little bit. 100,000, 150, hundo. We're about to come out of first quantum. One of the things that I'm going to do when we come out of the first quantum is I'm just going to turn off my quantum drive. That's going to actually, and if you wait long enough, like as soon as you come out, you can see that I'm on cooldown and you can see the spots red. If I would have stayed, I turned off my Quantanium, my spool, because if I would just spool on that and then go to hit quantum again, it would actually sputter and it would make me respool again. So by turning it off and then turning it back on, around the time the cooldown's gonna, finish off and the calibration and the spooling up is gonna be completed, when I go ahead and click quantum, I head right back in. It doesn't kind of give me that secondary, where it just kind of blinks and then you have to respool again. So turning off your quantum drive's a pretty easy thing to do in order to circumvent that. So next order of business is coming in here, and one of the things I'll tell you in the PTU that's happening right now is there are many times you're coming to the refineries and the elevators are not working. And one of the things I want to just show you, and I think it's a good example here, is I'm not actually going to land at a hanger. Now, when 318 goes live, it may not have this issue at all. We still are in the test version. We're still in, it is Wave 2, but we're still, you know, this is still the PTU. But what I'm going to do here is show you guys how you can actually land at the landing pads. Kind of the old place before you used to have to go to the hangars. There were pads that you land on. You can actually land on the landing pads and then go down. You won't be able to store your ship, but you will be able to go down to the refinery, and it will recognize your refined load, and you will be able to go ahead and process your refining job. So here we come in. You can see I have the opportunity to contact ATC to land, but I actually don't bother with it. I did use that signal as a reminder to drop my gear, lower my VTOLs. But as you can see, I'm going to slide right underneath the mate. You know, normally you'd get a hanger up, up above in one of those hangars right above us now. But in this particular case, I didn't want to get into the hangar and then get a situation where I call the elevator and it didn't come, and then I have to open the hangar again to get out. So because I know that's a problem, or if you just happen to know that you're going to be doing, a lot of Quantanium mining, you don't necessarily have to go get into a hangar. You can just bring it over here to one of the pads. Now, first alarm has gone off, as you can see, and it went off a good 30 seconds ago. So we're still in really good shape. We just got first alarm, and we're almost gonna be landing. So these pads are right on, kind of in the middle section. There's plenty of them. There's one just the opposite on the other side of the spindle as well. But you want to, when you do come to the pad, you do want to take your time. You do want to get a soft touchdown landing. Don't slam your prospector into the deck and hope that it's not going to go unstable, because it certainly can. It's a good sign that when you pull up and doing your post that you got the refilled Quantanium and hydrogen. That means that that's definitely recognized by the station on the pad. Don't panic if it's not either. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not. For the most part, if I'm on the pad, I've known, even when I was on the pad where there was like a partially exploded vulture on the pad with me, it recognized my prospector. So that's been pretty consistent. Now I'm kind of holding my breath here. Am I going to get an elevator? Boom. Yes, I did. That's great. You don't always, right? And that's, like I said, that's a PTU specific thing. I hope that's going to be gone before we go live. So I'm going to show you here pretty quickly. If you take a look at the fleet manager, you're going to see the prospector is actually considered on pad 1. You can see it there, but it is claimed. So if you land on one of the pads, do not claim your prospector. Just trust that the refinery is going to see the goods inside it. Absolutely do not claim it. If for some reason it says store, like if something changes between the PTU and when it goes live, then you can certainly store your prospector in that situation. But if it says claim on that pad, you can rest assured if you claim that ship, you're going to lose your Quantanium. So do not do that. That being said, once again, the pad is just fine. And it's actually can be a little bit quicker. If you're going to run here, if you're going back out for a second run, you can run up here to the refinery. You can just go ahead and get the job done, run right back out to the prospector, take off, and head back out again. So the pads can be, save you a little bit of time. So here I'm going to come up to the refinery. We're going to choose the Quantanium. I'm going to choose the Dynix Solvanation. That's going to be takes the longest, but you get the most yield, and it's the least amount of cost. And so in this particular case, I have 2638 is my yield. And the good news is that is 232,000 aUEC after I do my cargo run. So anyways, I just wanted to really kind of give you this Prospector 101, dirt under the fingernails. You guys know how I like to do these. And so I'm going to say to you, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciated it. I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that this video serves you well. We're almost there. I'm really excited about it, and I will see you all around the verse.